Friday night, the 15th, the day after the new moon. What I've done is I've pushed the imaging parameters all the way up on the real-time imager to 256/44.8 because I wanted to see if I could get one last really good view of Messier 16, the Eagle Nebula, and boy is it coming through. I tried this last night, and for some reason when I started right off using 256/44.8 for settings, I did not get a very good image at all, but tonight it's really cooking up there. So what I'm going to do is sweep it a little bit before I launch into the 7349 series of galaxies much later this evening, probably in about an hour and a half, because that series of galaxies is very, very low. But what we're getting here is a spectacular view of the Eagle Nebula. Wow. It's just too bad I can't get a nice flat image across this TFT display monitor. And we're only getting the high contrast view at the bottom of the screen. But I am going to pause it now and then sweep the nebula downward to the right so we can catch a little bit more of the Eagle's wings. Of course, I'll be switching back to the standard parameters for the NGC Sky Tour, and those will be 128 a flood 42, which is virtually equivalent to a 22-inch telescope without the resolution, without the image depth as well. But this is our view at 256 flood, 44.8 decibels of auto gain control of the Eagle Nebula, and it is cooking. So I consider this the light collecting power of a 36-inch telescope, and if you followed some of the videos so far, 2 NGC series ago I showed you what the 48-inch Schmidt camera looked at like. Huge. And my own telescope's only got a 6-inch lens at the front to capture light. And it is giving views that are nothing like the Ocean 48-inch Schmidt camera out of Palomar. But at least it's gathering light almost as deep, perhaps 1 magnitude less than the 48-inch Schmidt when I use the highest sensitivity and multiple stacks at the longest exposure times on the Rev 2 imager. But tonight we got what I consider to be a superb view of the Eagle Nebula, Messier 16 in Serpens. While you watch this region of Pegasus take form, using the highest possible gain and flood, thought I'd let you know that tonight's going to be really tightly squeezed. There's, of the 50 studies between NGC 7300 and 7349, there's almost 50 different galaxies, and primarily that we're going to have to turn up. However, I've centered this view at the highest possible sensitivity on NGC 7317. And there's a reason for it. And those in the know who are into eyepiece astronomy know that this is a very challenging group of galaxies to be able to make out. In fact, it was the first galaxy group ever discovered at the telescope. And it was done by an astronomer back in the 1880s or 90s by the name of Stephan. And I'll give you more data on that later, but I thought I'd go ahead and just give you a view. I can see a multiplicity of galaxies in this field of view. Certainly I can see 5 of them. And the faintest one is about magnitude 16.5, but keep in mind I am using the highest possible sensitivity and exposure time to capture this view of Stephan's Quintet. But it'll be another 40 minutes or so before we get started. Although Stephan's Quintet, by the way, is in a very favorable part of the sky because it is at some 30 degrees above the celestial equator. And there'll be many studies that are much lower, and we'll have to wait till they're nearer culmination before we begin the series for tonight. So until later. Before I launch into tonight's series of NGC 7300 to 7349, I thought I'd give you a little preliminary. There's going to be almost 50 studies throughout this evening. I've already gone through them. In particular, we're going to want to look at Stephan's Quintet. And I decided, hey, we might as well have a look at it at the highest possible sensitivity rating, which is 256 flood and 44.8 decibels of gain. So here's a view. Now, earlier I did it at 256.36, which I'm going to post up an image of that as well. So we can compare that to what I think is roughly the same as 128.42, or slightly less than. So they should be comparable. So we'll be able to check out the views. But I'm having no trouble seeing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, possibly 6 galaxies, all right there in the very center of the field of view. So thank you, NGC Dreyer, for compiling this list. I'm looking forward to exploring more this evening. Okay, let's get rolling. We got a lot to go through tonight, and I've already used up some of the battery in the handy cam. It's a bit chilly, so the battery won't last as long. I feel sorry for electric vehicle owners who have to operate in cold climates due to that factor. This is NGC 7300, a galaxy in Aquarius, magnitude 12.9, 2.1 by 1 arc minute, so a blatantly presented spiral with a bar in lowercase b, 2 million light years distance, minus 14 degrees declination. A little further south, NGC 7301, another galaxy in Aquarius, fainter magnitude 13.2, also a 2-to-1 ratio, 1 by 0.5 arc minutes, oblately presented spiral with a large bar, a little more distant, 332 million light years, probably about the size of our own Milky Way, at about 100,000 light years in diameter. We're at minus 17.5 degrees now. NGC 7302, yeah, galaxy in Aquarius. Magnitude 12.3, 2.1 by 1.2, a little fatter than an oblate, spiral, lenticular, class O, 117 million light years distant at about minus 14 degrees. All of these studies are after right ascension 2230. NGC 7303, we've headed north. Galaxy in Pegasus, also known as NGC 7304. Magnitude 12.6, but smallish, 1.5 by 1.1 arc minute football presentation, spiral, lowercase bc, 168 million light years distant, almost 31 degrees north in declination. We are getting way up there, should be a good view of a smallish, bright galaxy. You're going to have to watch this one wink into existence on the screen. NGC 7305, 15.1 magnitude, 1 by 1 arc minute galaxy in Pegasus, 348 million light years distant, plus almost 12 degrees in declination. And there's our look. Our first deep dive into the waters of Pisces Australis. NGC 7306, galaxy brightish, 12.7. and a little less than oblate, 1.7 by 0.7 arc minutes, a spiral with a small b and a ring, and if we had a better, higher sky position, we would certainly get a chance to see it. We're at minus 27 degrees in declination, however. We've headed another about 15 degrees further north, NGC 7308, a galaxy in Aquarius. Magnitude 14, Eggy shape, 1.2 by 0.9 arc minutes. It's a lenticular class O spiral, 346 million light years distant, probably about 110,000 light years in diameter, larger than our own Milky Way, at minus almost 13 degrees in declination. A little further north in Aquarius, NGC 7309 is a galaxy, magnitude 12.5, largish, 2 by 2 arc minutes. Spiral with a large bar in lowercase c, 179 million light years distant, puts it at about the size of our own Milky Way. It's 100,000 light years. It's minus 10, almost a half degrees in declination. There's our view. NGC 7310 is another galaxy in Aquarius. This one, however, is minus 22.5 degrees. Magnitude 13.9 should be a good stretch for the scope and the settings. 0.9 by 0.7 arc minutes, a spiral with a large bar and a ring, 433 million light years distant. So it's pushing up towards about 150,000 light years in diameter. Swinging north again into Pegasus at plus 5.5 degrees. NGC 7311, brightish, magnitude 12.5. A pure oblate with a 2-to-1 ratio, 1.6 by 0.8 arc minutes in apparent size. Spiral with a lowercase ab, 204 million light years distant, probably about 120,000 light years in diameter. A little larger than our own. Plus 5.5 degrees in declination. Go to clicker 2, very close to NGC 7311 is 7312, a galaxy in Pegasus. Fainter, magnitude 13.4, a little bit smaller, 1.5 by 0.8 arc minutes, spiral with a bar, 370 million light years distant. This one may be a bit larger given its distance, and it's plus almost 6 degrees in declination. On deep again, down with the fishies. NGC 7313 is a galaxy in Pisces Austrinus. Faint, shouldn't really expect to see this one, magnitude 14.1. but small, 0.7 by 0.5 arc minutes, which means it's a little more intense than something a little bit one arc minute in size. Spiral with a large bar in lowercase b, 260 million light years distant. This galaxy is probably only about 75,000 light years in diameter. It's at minus 26 degrees in declination. Very close to 7313 is 7314, NGC that is, galaxy in Pisces Austrinus. Bright, magnitude 11, but large, 4.6 by 2 arc minutes. Spiral with a large bar in lowercase bc. Close. It's 66 million light years distant, and it's at minus 26 degrees, and I cannot believe it, but there it is right there. It was also on the screen earlier in that location. I am impressed because this is going to have, even though it's a magnitude 11, we're going to lose a couple of magnitudes just due to the sheer size, and it doesn't have a very pronounced nucleus. Very, very sweet view. We made the long run north to NGC 7315, a galaxy in Pegasus. Brightish, magnitude 12.5, but small, 1.6 by 1.6 arc minutes. Lenticular spiral class O, 288 million light years distance, was probably about 120,000 light years in diameter. It's at plus almost 35 degrees in declination. Further south, but still in Pegasus at plus 20 degrees, declination, NGC 7316, galaxy in Pegasus. Magnitude 13, 1.1 by 0.9 arc minutes, a spiral with a lowercase c, some 251 million light years distant. I'd say this one's probably about the size of our own Milky Way at 100,000 light years. It's at plus 20 degrees. And let us move on. Although it doesn't say it here, I do believe this next series of galaxies will include all of Stephan's quintet. This is NGC 7317, a galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 13.6, smallish, 0.7 by 0.6 arc minutes. It is an elliptical galaxy, 301 million light years distant, probably a bit about the size or a little smaller than our own galaxy. It's at plus almost 34 degrees. There's a grouping of galaxies on there. If we see all 5 of them, that means we're seeing a galaxy down as faint as magnitude 16.5, which should just be at the limits of our current settings because the scope is virtually pointing towards the zenith without being blocked in any way by a roof tride. Very excellent time of night to see these. Let's go ahead and step through them. There may be others intervening, but let's start with 7317 as a member of Stephan's Quintet. I'll correct this tomorrow if it is. Okay, just barely clicking over on the drive for Go 2 is NGC 7318A. Galaxy and Pegasus, magnitude 13.4, larger, 1.2 by 1 arc minute. It is an elliptical galaxy, so it'll appear rather globular, in about the same distance, 303 million light years. And I need not give you the declination. 33, 34 degrees north. Number 3, barely a click. NGC 7318b, Galaxy and Pegasus, magnitude 13.1, 1.6 by 1.1 arc minutes, spiral with a large bar, but this one is closer, 264 million light years, so it may not be part of the group that makes up Stephan's Quintet, but it is line of sight, almost 34 degrees north declination. Another brief stepper click to NGC 7319. Another Galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 13.1, 1.4 by 1.1 arc minutes, spiral with a large bar in lowercase bc, back in the numbers for distance, 302 million light years, almost 34 degrees north. Another brief stepper click to NGC 7320. Galaxy and Pegasus, magnitude 12.6. This is a line of sighter. It's only 38 million light years distant. Magnitude 12.6, 2.3 by 1.4 oblately presented galaxy, plus almost 34 degrees in the same locale as the Quintet. NGC 7320A, I believe the last galaxy in the group, is in Pegasus, magnitude 16 and small, 0.4 by 0.2. Spiral of the lenticular class O, it's at 3347, and the right ascension is 2236. I anticipate us being able to pick it out in the crowd. So, ladies and gentlemen, fellow astrobuds, Stephan's Quintet, which at the eyepiece is always a challenge, but when you have the augmentation of real-time imaging, you should be able to pick them all out, even that 16th magnitude 7320A. I thought we were leaving the area. There's also a 7320B, although it was a little more distant. NGC 7320B, Galaxy and Pegasus, a little brighter than the last one, magnitude 15.6, a little larger and more edgy on, 0.6 by 0.2 arc minutes, just classified as a spiral. It's also a little closer at 277 million light years distant, so probably a member of the club, but it is not close to the nucleus. It's about 25 million light years closer to us, 33, almost 34 degrees north declination. Would you believe we haven't used up all the letters of the alphabet, but we're getting close. NGC 7320C is a Galaxy in Pegasus, a little further out than the others, magnitude 15.5, face on 0.4 by 0.4, a spiral with a bar and lenticular class O, as well as a lowercase a and a ring. I doubt we'll be seeing the ring. That would probably be about magnitude 18.5 to 19. 268 million light years distance, and once again nudging up against plus 34 degrees in declination. Well, we have sprung the Stephan's trap. We're now at NGC 7321, no letters, Galaxy and Pegasus, brightish, magnitude 12.9, 1.6 by 1.1 arc minutes, of comparable distance, 319 million light years, but it's now 21.5 degrees in declination. So we are definitely on our way towards the celestial equator. Further south still, but remaining in Pegasus, NGC 7323 galaxy, magnitude 12.9, 1.4 by 1.1 arc minutes, spiral with the lowercase b, and a ring. You might even see that baby. I'd estimate it to be around magnitude 15.5, should be achievable. 253 million light years distant, plus 20 degrees, so not too bad as far as sky position is concerned. Barely a step or click from NGC 7323 is 7324. Galaxy in Pegasus, faintish, magnitude 15.1, 0.7 by 0.4 arc minutes. The most distant galaxy yet, 435 million light years. Given its size, it's probably about the size of our own galaxy, because the Andromeda galaxy would be about 1 arc minute in size at that distance. We are at plus 19 degrees declination. Oh, we're just about to turn the corner. We got a whole lot of galaxies going on, friends. NGC 7325 is a galaxy in Pegasus. Nice test, magnitude 16.1. 375 million light years distant, but no information about how large it is. Maybe we could estimate it. The core is the only thing we'll see on it. Plus 34.5 degrees, so well placed in the sky. NGC 7326, another galaxy in Pegasus. Faintish, magnitude 15.7, 0.9 by 0.4 arc minutes, 366 million light years distant, plus 34.5 degrees in declination. NGC 7327 is a neighbor of 26. It's a galaxy in Pegasus. Faint, magnitude 15.3, small, 0.5 by 0.4 arc minutes, 375 million light years distant. This guy is probably no bigger than 50 or 60,000 light years across. It's at plus 34.5 degrees in declination. NGC 7328 is another galaxy in Pegasus. Magnitude 13.1. It should have a nice aspect ratio, 2 to 0.7 arc minutes in size. Spiral with the lowercase ab, some 128 million light years distant, so probably about the size of our own Milky Way. Plus 10.5 degrees in declination. NGC 7330 is a galaxy in Lacerta. Its magnitude 12.2. Face on pretty much 1.8 by 1.7 arc minutes, but it's an elliptical, so therefore they're always pretty much face on. 241 million light years distant, and plus 38.5 degrees. I don't think we're getting any blockage of the aperture, but we would know if there's color on the screen. All right, we've seen this one forecasted before on the screen, but never was quite centered. NGC 7331 is a galaxy in Pegasus. Ooh, magnitude 9.5, 10.2 by 4.2 arc minutes. What a nice ratio, super edge on. Spiral with a large bar, a mere 46 million light years distant. So I would say it's roughly about, maybe about the size of our own Milky Way galaxy. Plus 34.5 degrees. I'll probably calculate this one out tomorrow and give you an idea about it. It is a beauty. Enjoy. NGC 7332 galaxy in Pegasus. Brightish, magnitude 11.1. Nice aspect ratio, 3.8 to 1.1. Spiral of the lenticular class O, mere 60 million light years distance, so rather dwarfish, maybe around 50,000 light years across. It's at plus 23.5 degrees. We're still well within the right ascension of 2237 in terms of progress of stars across the heaven. Of course, once we get to hour 24, it turns into hour 0. Or is that 1? Probably 1. We'll have to check it out. NGC 7335 is a galaxy in Pegasus. Magnitude 13.4, 1.3 by 0.6, oblately presented spiral with a lowercase a, 287 million light years distant, probably about the size of our own Milky Way. It's at plus 34.5 degrees above the celestial equator. NGC 7336.5 has a neighbor, NGC 73 7336. But I'm going to have to look up the data for you. I know it's faintish. NGC 7336, come on. Galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 15.4 by 0.3, arc minute smallish, spiral with no other designation, 393 million light years distant. This is a very small galaxy to be magnitude 15. Must be pretty mature. I might run the numbers on it. Plus 34.5 degrees. NGC 7337 is another galaxy in Pegasus. Boy, that horse is really getting a lot of galaxies to ride in its saddle. Magnitude 14.4, 1 by 0.8 arc minutes, spiral with a large bar, some 307 million light years distant, so about the size of the Milky Way, plus 34 and almost a half degrees. NGC 7339. I'm sure it looks very nice on the screen. Galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 12.2, almost to that magic line of magnitude 12. 2.8 by 0.7, spiral with a large bar, lowercase bc, a mere 59 million light years distant. So this is kind of a sub-dwarf sized galaxy, maybe 25 to 30,000 light years, plus 23 3/4. In terms of declination. I sure am glad I got an earlier start on this. We're starting to get almost overhead with the roof tries up there. So here we have NGC 7340, a galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 13.7, 0.9 by 0.6. It's an elliptical galaxy, 292 million light years distant, 34.5 degrees. We haven't quite yet entered into the Great Square. Finally, Aquarius gets its turn again. NGC 7341, galaxy, magnitude 12.4, 2.4 by 1 arc minutes, a spiral with a bar, lowercase ab, and a ring. And if the sky position was better, I'm sure we'd see the ring. 198 million light years distant, but this one is minus 22, almost 23 degrees south. NGC 7342 is almost on the zenith. Galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 13.9, pretty face-on, 1.4 by 1.3, spiral with a bar, so maybe we'll get a look at that bar. 360 million light years distant and plus 35.5 degrees. NGC 7343, galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 13.5, 1 by 0.8 arc minutes, spiral with a large bar. 344 million light years distant. I'd say this is about a little larger than our Milky Way, plus 34 degrees. NGC 7344, galaxy in Aquarius, but not quite so far south. It's only minus 4 degrees in declination. And that's a good thing because this is a magnitude 14, 1.5 by 0.8 arc minute spiral over lowercase ab, and some 326 million light years distance, about the size of Messier 31 at that distance in the apparent size. As I said, minus 4 degrees in declination. NGC 7345 is another galaxy in Pegasus, a little fainter, magnitude 14.3, but edgy on, so look for it. 1.2 by 0.2 arc minutes in size, a spiral with a lowercase a, some 348 million light years distance, so maybe about 120,000 light years across. It's at plus 35.5 degrees declination. NGC 7346 is a galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 15.6, small, 0.4 by 0.3 arc minutes. It's an elliptical. This is the most distant galaxy yet, 513 million light years, but I would say it's probably no more than 65 or 70,000 light years in diameter, plus 11 degrees declination. Probably in the same field as NGC 7346 is NGC 7347, galaxy in Pegasus, magnitude 13.6, 1.5 by 0.3 arc minutes, so a nice aspect ratio. It's a spiral with a lowercase c, but it's close, 97 million light years distant, so I'd say it's probably 50 to 60,000 light years in diameter, plus 11 degrees And we're still in the 22nd and a half hour of right ascension. NGC 7348, another galaxy in Pegasus. Magnitude 13.8, 1.1 by 0.6 arc minutes, 326 million light years distance, a spiral with a large capital B bar and a lowercase c. This one's probably a little larger than the Milky Way. It's almost plus 12 degrees in declination. Last study on the list for tonight is NGC 73. What? 49, galaxy deep south in Aquarius, faintish, magnitude 14.2, 1 by 0.5 oblately presented spiral galaxy with a large bar and a lowercase b, 199 million light years distant, and almost minus 22 degrees. I'd be happy to see anything of the galaxy other than the core, maybe some faint extensions. And so that is the list of studies for tonight, but you know, we always like to get a look at Messier 33. And I will also see if I can turn up both of them using the highest possible settings, and that both of them will be the Helix Nebula in Aquarius, which should be culminating about this time. Here's our view of the Helix Nebula slowly revealing itself on the screen. I'm starting to see color. It's got a violet color to it. Remember, I think I calculated the average surface brightness of this 16 by 18 arc minute size planetary nebula as being somewhere around magnitude 17. So that's a real stretch to be seeing color in it. Now, we're seeing the color in it. We didn't see it last night because I wasn't operating at maximum settings. So I'm going to give this one a little chance to more fully develop to see if anything else comes out. But it's giving, at these settings, about as good a view as we got of the Eagle, the Eagle Nebula M16 and Serpens at half the exposure time and sensitivity. So this is what I call roughly the equivalent of a 36-inch eyepiece telescope, and I'm really seeing some color in it. I hope it's being picked up on the camera, although once again there's that glissade of contrast across the screen from top to bottom, and you can judge for yourself where the contrast is best. I think it's usually right above the dark color bar in that transition region, personally. So there's that view of the Helix Planetary in Aquarius. Why don't we have a look at Messier 33? And if we turn it up, don't turn it up because the battery goes out, carpe noctem. But if we do, hey, I'll get to say it again, seize the night. Here we see Messier 33, the triangulum galaxy formulating on the screen. I'll get you some data on it in case this turns out to be the very best image we've get of it so far throughout the observing calendar. Messier 33 is a galaxy in triangulum. It's magnitude 5.7, but it's 68 by 41 arc minutes. I can only imagine that it is even as faint as the Helix in terms of average surface brightness, and I'll calculate it up if I include this tomorrow. 3 million light years distant, and it's at plus 30.5 degrees. It's also at hour 1:33, and that means it's probably some 25 degrees before it will culminate. So it's not, we won't be really looking at this in detail till later, but keep in mind what we're looking at now is at the highest possible sensitivity and exposure time. How about Messier 110? Otherwise, carpe noctem. Here we have Messier 110, also a very low average surface brightness, large satellite galaxy of Messier 31. It's an Andromeda, magnitude 8.1, 19.5 by 11.5 arc minutes. So 3 million light years distant, I think is more like 2.5. If we could see the whole thing, it would definitely fill the entire screen virtually. It's at plus 41.5 degrees north declination, and it is 0 hour when we pass into the NGC 1 to 49 series. So with this fabulous, hopefully, view of Messier 110, Carpe Noctem.